Hey everybody, it's your boy Pigskin Pete. Happy Monday to everybody. So today's video is we're going to talk about what I consider to be the top 5 college football programs in the country right now. I also kind of want to mirror that with who I think will be the top 5 teams next year. And how I would judge who the top 5 programs are. There's going to be a lot of people that think another program should be flipped out with another program, vice versa. Listen, it's hard to pick the top 5 because number 6 is probably going to be, made an argument for number 5, just like we see with the playoffs, right? But my justification or the reasoning behind who I'm picking to be the top 5 teams next year is, well, there's a lot of reasons, but here's the way I'm going to frame it. I'm going to say the top 5 teams that I think are most likely to win a national title at some point in, say, the next 6 or 7 years or the next decade. At least one national title. So which 5 teams in America right now, or 5 programs, are most likely to achieve that goal in the next 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years? So that's how I'm going to justify that. But before I do that, I guess it was about a year and a half ago maybe, I posted a video on YouTube, and I think the title was something like Clemson and Alabama run college football. And of course, again, like that was 2 football seasons ago. That was at a point in time where Clemson and Alabama were playing each other on a regular basis every year in the postseason. They were swapping back and forth national title wins. Of course, Clemson and Alabama, I think it's either 7 or 8 years now, something like that, straight years. Over the last 7 or 8 years collectively, they're the 2 winningest programs when you add up total wins, when you add up playoff wins, when you add up national titles. These are the 2 still most dominant teams in the country. Despite the fact that Alabama got blown out a couple of years ago in the national championship game and then didn't even make the national championship game this year or the playoffs this year. But I still think that Alabama is the gold standard. I still believe that. Now, Clemson's either right there with them or has passed them. But you're talking about splitting hairs here. As far as I know, nobody's told me any differently. I'm sure it would have been the biggest news in college football, but Nick Saban is still the coach at Alabama. Alabama is still recruiting in the top 3 every single year. Hell, I even would go as far to say is that they're recruiting better now at the most important position than they used to do. Alabama under Nick Saban, even when he was winning titles before he had an offense that was elite. They always have had good running backs and good receivers and good tight ends and all that, good offensive line. But they, up until pretty much Tua, right? They never had a real airing out type of quarterback. They just did. It's just not the game that they played. Now they're recruiting at that position as well as anybody in the country. So, listen, Alabama's not going anywhere. And listen, if you're one of these other teams, LSU's going to have a problem with me saying this, right? And I've been on record as saying that I think that LSU's not just going to go away like everybody thinks that they are, just because Joe Burrow's leaving. Now, look, they're replacing a lot of guys. It's not just Joe Burrow. They got like 7 or 8 guys going in the NFL that were key players last year. But they're recruiting well, too. They have a great coaching staff. They've got the infrastructure, the facilities. So they've got everything there. Now, next season might be, I don't think you're going to see LSU make a national title run next year. But that doesn't mean that the year after they won't. It's hard to back up a title with a title, especially when you're losing all those people. But anyway, so that's my reasoning. And Alabama and Clemson, to me, are still running college football until further notice. But let's just go ahead and get into the who I consider to be the top 5 programs and probably will be the top 5 teams next year. Well, there's only 4 teams in the playoffs, so one of these teams, in my opinion, is not going to make the playoffs. Obviously, they can't. It's impossible for that to happen if there's only 4 spots. But that's how I'm going to judge this. All right, so I just said it. Alabama. I think Alabama is most likely one of the 5 teams that's going to win at least one national title in the near future. Clemson. For obvious reasons. Should I even go into the reasons? Listen, the ACC is not very good right now. Even if the ACC got better, There's a big gap between Clemson and the next team. And they've proven that they can compete with anybody in the postseason as well. Number 3, Ohio State. Listen, Ohio State, and they're not new to this deal. Ohio State's been right at the top in the top 3 programs in college football for at least. I'm not going to go all the way back throughout entire history, but just in modern football, even this century, okay, since 2000, they've had some up years, they've had some down years, but most of the years have been up. They've won titles. They competed for titles, several playoff appearances, the whole 9 yards. So, look, what Ohio State did last year, I can sit here and joke about Ohio State all I want, being a Clemson guy, because they've never beat Clemson, but here's the reality. What they did last year was one of the most impressive things I've seen. And why would you say that? Well, the reason I would say that is because with the way things left the season before, with Urban Meyer retiring, the whole thing that went on behind that, them promoting a guy who's never been a head coach before, them taking in a transfer quarterback in Justin Fields, who has never been a starter in college, very talented, but didn't start at Georgia. And so all those sort of things, you would think, even though it's a very talented team, that there's got to be some sort of a transition. Well, all Ohio State did was go out and dominate the entire country throughout the first 13 games of football. I mean, they're going into the playoffs, they were the most dominant team in the country. Now, some people are going to tell me LSU was. I'm just saying that those two were very close, okay? But Ohio State completely dominated college football last year. That's the way I look at it. Before the playoffs, during the regular season. And so, yeah, and I don't see that changing. I think what you're going to see, they're going to get Justin Fields is going to be better this year. And you're going to tell me, oh, well, they're losing Chase Young. They're losing who's the other guys? Look, fine, but they don't. Ohio State doesn't rebuild; they reload. So look, they're going to get better. The coaching staff is going to grow more continuity, which I think is important. Been one of the major advantages for Clemson over the past decade. I mean, nobody's kept together a coaching staff like Clemson has, and that always equals to continuity. Always equals to wins if you are an elite, if you have the elite talent on the field. So anyway, Ohio State's definitely in that one. Georgia, the Bulldogs. The Bulldogs have not won a title in 40 years now. We all know that, but they have proven this. Well, first of all, they've proven to the whole country that they can out-recruit everybody. I mean, if you just go by the standings, they've been hit or miss with the quarterback position. I mean, hell, they had a great one there, but he left and went to Ohio State, so that I guess that doesn't count if he didn't ever start there. But you see what I'm saying. But what Georgia has proved, other than that they can out-recruit everybody or recruit with anybody, is that they have staying power. What do I mean by that? There's some teams that come into the playoffs, make a playoff run one year, and then they go away. There's been several teams that have done this in the playoff era. Georgia's been to the playoffs, was literally maybe a play or two away from winning a national title against Alabama when Tua broke the game open in the second half there. But they continue to win at a high level. There's a hump they haven't gotten over. That hump just happens to be pretty much every SEC West team that they play, with the exception of maybe Texas A&M or something. But Alabama's the main hurdle. The past couple times they played LSU, they've lost to them too. So that's their hurdle that they got to get over. But they're very close, and I don't see them going away. So I think that Georgia, despite the fact that they haven't won a title in 40 years, is still one of the top 4 programs, top 5 certainly, programs in America, and teams next year too. And so we'll see if they can capitalize on that. Will this be their year? Will 2021 be their year? I don't know. Sometime within the next 5, 6, 7 years, I believe that they will break through that door and win a title. Going to be kind of hard to do with Jamie Newman. He's a little bit of an unknown. I think he's a really good player. Don't get me wrong. But he's a little bit of an unknown. Georgia's finally waking up, getting out of the dark ages. It appears that way anyway. They're taking advice from what LSU did and updating that offense to something that's not just a ground and pound 3 yards in a cloud of dust type of deal. So Georgia's definitely in there. This fifth one might shock you. especially if you're one of these teams that are going to be left on the outside looking in on my list. The 5th team, to me, is Oregon. Now, I was clowned and laughed at by a lot of people on YouTube. When I did my preseason predictions last year, right before the season started, everyone was asking me, hey, who's your preseason top 4? Who do you think is going to make the playoffs? I had, who did I have? I think I had Oklahoma, which obviously they, Anyway, so I had Oklahoma, Alabama, Clemson, and Oregon. Oregon was my number 4 dark horse team. And everybody laughed at me. They tried to clown me out, right? Well, Oregon was literally, they probably did belong in the playoffs. Maybe some people think, or a lot of people think, that they were definitely better than Oklahoma. I mean, we'll never know that unless they played against each other, but they didn't. But Oregon's a legit team. Here's the thing. That Oregon has a chance to be the Clemson of the Pac-12. They're headed in that direction. And unless some of the other teams in the Pac-12 can clean up their mess and get a lot better, Oregon's on the way of running away with the Pac-12 as far as talent and coaching. We already know they have the best facilities in the Pac-12 too, because they've got all that Nike money. But yeah, so they're recruiting at a high level. The coaching staff they have a really good coaching staff, and they just seem their talent continues to grow and grow each year. They're recruiting really well. And yeah, they had a stumble last year. I mean, they would have been in the playoffs had they not lost to Arizona State. Some people are saying, why would they want to schedule Auburn week 1 and lose to them, which they were this close to beating them. But anyway, they lost. But that game to Auburn didn't keep Oregon out of the playoffs. That loss did not hurt them. The loss to Arizona State did. So if they would have beaten Arizona State like they should have and like they were heavily favored to do, that was just a slip-up. One of those games where they got caught slipping. And it kept them out of the playoffs. But I think that Oregon's going to break through that door. I think I see a couple of programs in the Pac-12 over the next few years getting better than they are now. I mean, going from bad to decent. I don't think I see anybody getting anywhere close to Oregon's level, though. I just don't see it. You don't see it in the recruiting. You don't see it in the money. And their head coach there, Cristobal, he's doing a great job. So, yeah, I got Oregon in there. Now, on the outside looking in, and again, LSU, they're going to feel slighted, and they're going to come. Or you're still just mad about the national championship game, Pete. No, I'm not mad about championship games. Sorry, and it has nothing to do with this. For the reasons I just stated, all the talent you're losing. I don't think you're going away. I still think you're one of the top, definitely a top 10 program. I mean, I would say you could switch LSU and Oregon out maybe as being the program level. Fine, I'm not going to dispute that. But I think that Oregon has a better chance of winning a national championship in the next few years than LSU does. So that's the only reason for that. So some of that has to do with the fact that LSU's got a tougher road to get there. Florida, now, I think Florida's at the point where they're a top 10 program, maybe top 12 program. Yeah, but I don't know. They're not in Georgia's level. But again, this is another program out there that's getting a lot better. Team that's getting a lot better. I think we're going to see probably Florida at least be a perennial top 10 team. When they had they've had a roller coaster over the past couple of decades. They've been at the highest of highs, the lowest of lows, and everything in between, and they just seem to go up and down, up and down. It looks like the seas are steadying a little bit for Florida's program. And I think Dan Mullen's a really good coach. Is he a national title winning caliber coach? I don't know. Nobody knows. Anybody who pretends like they do know is doing just that, pretending. So I don't know, but I think Florida is going to be a top 10 team. Notre Dame's another one. Notre Dame's been consistently good, but not great. Consistently good, but not great. And it's really hard to judge how good can they be with the way that they recruit. I think I heard Brian Kelly say something a couple of weeks ago, which was mind-numbingly stupid. And I like Brian Kelly. I'm not hating on him. I think he's done a really good job there. But he said something to the effect of, we need to start recruiting better if we want to compete for titles. we need to start recruiting better if we want to compete for titles. This is what this guy said. So yeah, that was. I don't know if he was trolling or I don't know what he's doing. But yeah, no shit, Sherlock. Thank you for that. Thank you for that brilliant statement. But anyway, yeah, I think Notre Dame is great. And look, there's a bunch of other teams out there. Obviously, Auburn. There's a lot of SEC teams. When you add in Texas A&M on the rise, I think. Just a lot of teams in the SEC that are recruiting really well, and they're sort of battling it out with each other. But at this point in the game, I still think the gold standard for programs and teams is Alabama and Clemson. We'll see what happens this year. And obviously, any prediction that I make this early in the year, we're talking about the title game's not going to be played for another 11 months or almost 11 months. So, look, there's a lot of things that can happen between now and then. You don't come back to my video 11 months from now and go, oh, this idiot said that Oregon was going to make the playoffs. And, it turns out that Oregon has their 3 key players hurt. And they have an NCAA violation, which keeps them out of the playoffs. Look, I can't predict what's going to happen this early. It's just my way too early prediction for the top 5 teams next year. And also just to let you know that Clemson and Alabama still run football. College football, that is. All right, guys. See you next time. Pigskin Pete checking out.